I guess the idea is that it brings together lots of different disciplines that are critically important in data science. So things like mathematics and computer science, statistics, these can all be taught in one place. There's, I guess, a sense of camaraderie and scholarship between those disciplines that overlap in data science.
Yeah, there's also competition, of course, with respect to those existing disciplines. I mean, I think from our point of view, what we speak about the school as being a school without walls. And
Mm,
really, that takes what you just described, which are core elements that come from statistics, computer science, applied math, and so on. But really, it's the domains to which that's applied. I think that's what makes for data science, in my view. And what we're trying to do here is to sort of pervade throughout the university framework, and essentially be a point of exchange of best practices where we bring together people and methods and data, protocols and workflows, whatever else it might be, that we share those more broadly across, frankly, what is a siloed institution, not
right,
just ours. I'm talking generally. And this, of
right.
course, applies across not just academia, but also the private sector. So it's really, us trying to be that point of exchange. And I've got, examples of why I think that's so important, but I wish I can go into if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
So a good example, and one I use a fair bit, is just one day I'm sitting in my office and there's a bang on the door, and it's this fellow, and he says, "Well, I'm actually a trauma surgeon." And I said, "Really? But what are you doing here?" And he says, "Well, I'm actually interested in learning about data science." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, I've been doing trauma surgeries for a long time. Here, UVA has a health system that's really quite renowned.
Mhm.
Got to have that plug in there." And it, he said, quite often trauma comes from car crashes. And what I noticed anecdotally was a relationship between the kind of injury that people were getting and the kind of car crash they were having, whether it was a rollover, front, head on, rear ending, whatever it might be.
Huh.
So he said, I got interested enough in this that I went to, this is where it gets, this is where a medal is deserved. He went to the Department of Motor Vehicles and got public data on crashes in Virginia. And then he tried to begin to map that to the electronic health record, which he has access to in the hospital.
Wow.
And he said, I don't know what tools to apply. I don't know how to do this. So he ended up doing a master's in data science within our program.
Wow.
And the notion of all of this, of course, is that when someone shows up in the ER after a crash, what happens now, what was happening, is that they don't know how to treat them because the injuries are internal. A lot of injuries are internal. So they start doing a full body scan. And occasionally people die in the scanner because, the time it takes to localize where their trauma is. If
Mhm.
you had a better idea through this kind of correlation between a kind of crash and the internal injury, you could
Mhm.
potentially, short circuit that process by examining that part of the internal organs
Wow.
immediately and then dealing with it. So I thought this is to me the essence of data science. That suddenly you've got, first of all, you've got someone who's just wanting, in some ways, a sort of citizen who's getting involved in all of this, and you're bringing together two very disparate sets of data. I mean, normally people don't think about what would be typically the study in the area of transport versus health. Bringing
Right.
those data sets together actually to create societal benefit.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any better than that.
That's a really good example.
So I just, that, and we've got lots of examples like that that's happening, and it just wouldn't happen without having this, whether it's a school or not, but certainly having this entity that people can turn to help them with this kind of learning and improvement in society. So that's what we're about.
If you have one more such example like that one on the tip of your tongue, I would love to hear it. That one was amazing.
I would say I mean, well, I could actually cite from my own work, but I won't do that. Let me just sort of twist it slightly and say, uh, you know, so people say, well, okay, that's an example, but is it generalizable? And this capability. And I would my argument. I had this conversation with someone once. We were sitting having a coffee one morning in a bakery here in Charlottesville, and I said, okay, pick an object, and I'll tell you a data science story about it. There's a data science story about everything. So he said, okay, that blueberry muffin in the over there. I said, okay, well, first of all, the data that machines are collecting now that actually, it's all about manufacturing. They're fine tunable, and effectively, the data that's being collected from them is used to tune the instrument over time. So you end up creating, a better muffin. So that's the first part of the supply chain. Also,
Right.
well, it's not the first part; it's sort of central part of the supply chain. How you get
Mhm.
the ingredients and how you actually predict how much you need to buy and so on. That's more data science in the supply chain that
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
it's precursive to actually making the muffin. And then, of
Right.
course, there's the whole distribution. And there's the notion that right now, I can go in, I can look up on Yelp or wherever it might be, and I can see that they have good muffins. What I can't do, or bad muffins, of course. What I can't do is say, well, it's 10 past 11 in the morning. The odds of that muffin still being sitting on the shelf is 1 in 3. That predictive based on the sales rate and everything else. Another piece of data science. So it's all along that supply chain, and wherever there's jobs to be had all along there, and you know, you know, to make the baker happy.